guiding us, by the way, is the Georgetown University Center of Education and Workforce reports that by 2031, 71% of all new jobs will require something past high school. It may not be a 4-year degree or bachelor's degree, but good employment is going to require something, a credential, a certification of some kind. And so part of our work as a department is to help create pathways for Missourians to learn, work, and prosper, and to be prepared to have a good job. And surveys show students at college campuses, that's the number one thing they want, is they want a good career, they want a good work opportunity. But also, if you look at the demographics, this goes beyond high school graduates. We need to be able to go back and get adult learners, non-traditionals, parents with children who need to get back into the workforce. And so they need to reskill, upskill, and be ready for the new work. So a lot of our work goes along those ways. Some of our accomplishments, though, you're familiar with them. MOExcels, the coordinating funding for MOExcels, has helped the institutions forge some fantastic industrial partnerships in the regions to have facilities and programs to help strengthen regional workforce with economic development and community development, which goes hand in hand. We've had dynamic growth in apprenticeships. Missouri is now number 2 in the nation in registered apprenticeships. The goal at the start of the program was to simply be number 2 perhaps in the Midwest, but we have skyrocketed past that. We've got more coordinated, better coordinated financial aid. I think we can talk about that today if you care to, about fast track and some of that. And some of our financial aid programs are targeted to non-traditional adult learners, getting them back into the workforce who want to make career changes. And how do we help them do that? What are the supports they need? We've also been relocating our job centers. We've got 20 job centers across the state, and many of them are now looking to relocate onto college campuses. And this is good because it allows for that smooth handoff. We see that someone has got some credit, no degree, and so while we're trying to help them find a position to meet next month's rent, we can also be talking about what are some of those pathways to get a more sustainable job, more secure job, a better paying job. So that's very good for all of us. The other thing I wanted to mention, we have been good partners with the Department of Corrections. Missouri has 1,000 parolees every month. 1,000 Missourians every month are released from prisons into the workforce. And so part of our concern is, are they ready? How do we help them be successful? And we've got 10 centers across the state that we co-staff with the Department of Corrections to help prepare Missourians for that. In states that do this well, it's a triple win. It helps the individual and their families, it helps the local community and the workforce, and it helps the state, because states that do this well, it drastically reduces recidivism. And in some states, they've even able to reduce the budget to the Department of Corrections because they don't need as many prison guards because you don't have as large of a prison population. The last thing I'll say is we also are investing a good bit in what we're calling the Adult Learner Network, where we're working with our institutions who are trying to reach out and do more work to pull in more adult learners in non-traditional ways, so that our institutions are thinking broader and bigger, not the traditional 18 to 22-year-old living on the college campus. So I'll stop there in conclusion, just to say that this is the work the department's undertaken in terms of our combined higher education and workforce preparation, and we're pleased to walk through our budget. With us today, I've got our Deputy Commissioner, Leroy Wade, who's been with the department 30-some years. He knows it forwards and backwards. Also, Craig Schneiders is our Budget Director is here, and Taylor Sukup is our Legislative Liaison. We're very pleased to be here and be of service to you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sorry.
Senator Zierpoint.
Thank you. I'm just curious, when you say things like we're number 2 in internships, is that the number of people in it, the number of programs? How do you quantify those kind of things?
It's number 2 in registered apprenticeships, and there are groups that rate this for us. We keep coming in number 2, by the way, because we can't overcome California and Texas, so we keep bouncing around, and that's just because of size. But in terms of new businesses wanting to
So it's the number of programs that are offering internships, not the number of people in those internships.
Right, the number of apprenticeships being offered.
Okay.
And the apprenticeships can lead to a certification. It's another pathway into the workforce.
Mr. Chair. Well,
Senator Esslinger.
Senator Zierpoint perked my interest here. So obviously, a number of programs, and that is something that we've been, of course, nationwide, been kind of looking at for a few years. But can you tell me how many people are actually engaged in those programs? Does anybody keep that data within our state?
I'm sure we do. I'm trying to see, I don't have that number with me, but I'm sure we have a total number of how many.
It'd be
interns we have.
interesting to know. I just want to see the trend up. I just want to see where we started, before all of these initiatives that we put in place.
Okay, we can do that, and also we're reaching into high schools are joining in with us. We're getting we're getting, we're finding those blurs and those boundaries that, this isn't just a post-secondary situation. There are young people that want to get into apprenticeships on pathways, and so and we do work with DESE in a partnership, what resources they might need and want. We try to be just good partners.
Senator. Sorry, I got a little quick on the button. This is not budget or maybe someplace less, but I want you to do it real quick. We've already discussed it once in my office, but last night on the news, I saw the news again about FAFSA. Can one of the two of you, for those of us that are going to receive calls, upset at state government, it's all our fault, can you shrink it down to 3 or 4 sentences, what you see happening? And I see I have a few university people as well, so that the parents that are mad, I can at least be a good politician and point blame at somebody else.
I guess I would, again, it's not a state issue. It's the federal Department of Education that manages that. Because of changes to the way that aid is calculated or need is calculated through the federal methodology, the department had to completely redo the FAFSA in order to do that. Unfortunately, that didn't happen in a timely fashion, and so the FAFSA wasn't released until the last day of January, basically. Normally, it would have been released October 1st. The problem that we're experiencing now is that even though people can get in and fill out the FAFSA, the data that's behind that comes to the state and to the institutions to make calculations about financial aid, it appears now we're not going to get until sometime in March, which really compresses the process. By then, a lot of institutions would have already issued award letters, made awards to students about financial aid, and so it's going to have a negative impact, I'm afraid, particularly on first-generation students, needy students that aren't familiar with that process, and it's going to compress it on the other end, and so a lot of us are going to have to. I know institutions are already talking about moving deadlines in order to try and allow additional time. We're also thinking of that for our state aid program. So was that helpful?
That's very helpful, Mr. Wade. One more thing. Inside the department, what kind of impact does that have? Because that would be scholarship. That would be money leaving the department through tax money. Our Missouri programs are going to be impacted by that, correct?
That is correct.
And even budgetary guesses, you start those for next year and supplemental and stuff at this time when that FAFSA starts rolling out and those things, or am I wrong?
No, you're exactly right. Again, we would already be evaluating kind of where we are and where the trends that we were seeing, and at this point, because we're not getting any of that data, we can't do that yet.
Thank you.
I would only add, this is shared frustration. It's going to be, all of us are going to be already frustrated by this. Certainly the institutions are. They can't put together their financial aid packages. They got to wait. We can't act. We got to wait. So this is just one of those things where, not to pass the buck, literally, but it is a federal issue that's going to roll down and hit us as a state.
All right. Well, we'll start out, again, there's 3 books. We'll start with book 1, obviously. The first item is on page 12. That's the pay plan that was announced by the governor during the State of the State. For our agency, that's $961,984. And I'll just keep moving through this until I see questions, if that's okay. All right, the next item up is on page 23. This is the Coordination Administration core item for the department. Governor recommended $3.9 million. This item funds the basic operations of the department, budget and fiscal, program approval, financial aid, all of those kinds of things. The next one up is on page 40. This is student journey mapping. We had $100,000 of one-time funds in '24, and this is just taking that item out. On page 45 is the Grant and Scholarship Administration. Again, this is, the governor recommends $570,432. This funds about 10 individuals that work in the student financial aid area to administer our financial aid programs. Again, last year, we distributed just shy of $150 million through those programs to almost 60,000 Missourians. Next is page 56. This is a core item, again, for FAFSA filing. Again, we're going to need this more than ever, it seems like this year. Again, $75,000. We use this to reach out, work with financial aid offices and counselors to help first-generation students, high school seniors, complete the FAFSA and provide them with the information they need to be able to do that successfully. Next up is page 63. This is the MOEX sales. Again, as always, these are one-time funds. And so there were $38.3 million in this last year. This just zeroes that one-time funding out. And then the next item on page 68 is the MOEX sales for proposal FY 25. The department's recommendation was for $49.4 million. There were 22 projects that were submitted by the institutions. Those were all reviewed and ranked by a team of Department of Higher Ed and Workforce Development and DED folks. And again, you can see the listing, the ranked listing on page 70. In addition, you'll notice that the governor's recommendation is for $5 million additional, $54.4 million. That resulted from a switch, an additional $5 million for Ozark Technical College to help fund their new airframe and power plant maintenance center that they're putting together at the Springfield Airport. And this is really is essentially a reallocation from House Bill 20 ARPA funds into the MOEX sales for GR.
You want to remind me, this is, last year was the second year of the, I'm going to call it the 2-year deal on the MOEX sales projects, was it not? Where the administration went back to the institutions and said, you can either get a new project or submit for a new project, or we'll do the other half of the project that we did in FY 22. So this 54 million, these are all new, right? These aren't
These are all new.
continuations? Okay.
What you've described was more in the ARPA area as opposed to MOEX sales. There were a number of those where the governor had either offered to help them meet the match, or
Right.
they could have a new project.
Other than the last 5 million that you described coming over from 20, because that was the ARPA bill.
Right.
Everything else is GR, so 49 million is GR, and then we're going to have
Correct.
5 from ARPA.
Well, I believe it's all GR now. Yeah, it is all GR at this point. That one had been an ARPA project, but the governor moved it to GR and put it in as a MOEX sales appropriation.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Next up is page 74. This is the Proprietary School Certification Administration. One of the responsibilities of the department is to review and approve to operate certain kinds of post-secondary providers, mostly for-profit operations, but there are a range of institutions that come through this. The governor recommended $359,916. We license, there are 158 main locations. If you count all their branches as well, there's 171 instructional sites operated. This is a fee-funded program. There's no GR involved. The schools that are licensed pay a fee, and then that's used to fund the operation of the program. Page 85 is the proprietary school closure. This is a second piece of that. You'll see in the next item, there's a bond fund. Institutions have to post a security deposit in order to operate. If they close, they forfeit that bond, and then we reimburse students for lost tuition. Sometimes, however, there is money left over in that process, and so this item was created to allow us to spend that primarily for record preservation. Again, we're kind of the repository of records from closed schools. Either we house them, or we have records of where they are located. So when a student wants to get their transcript, we can help them find that, and that's what this particular appropriation does. Next up is page 93. This is the proprietary school bond that I mentioned. The bond requirement is between $5,000 and $100 or $50,000. Oh no, it's $100,000. I'm sorry. And so if, as I described, if a school closes or students are damaged some way, that this bond allows us to take that money and then reimburse those students. You'll notice in this that this is a $200,000 item. That's a core reduction of $200,000. Several years ago, we saw a big spate of school closures, and so at that point, we asked and you all approved raising that to $400,000 so we would have sufficient authority to be able to do this. Hopefully, things have calmed down quite a bit in that regard, and so we feel like it's comfortable going back to the $200,000 as the appropriation, or it's spending authority, basically. There's no GR involved. Next up is page 100. This is the Midwest Higher Education Compact, and our membership fee, $115,000. That's our annual membership in the Midwest Higher Education Compact. Up next is page 109. This is a placeholder, federal grants and donations. Again, for $500,000. This just gives us the ability, if we pursue particular federal grants, gives us a place to put that money and then be able to spend that. As is required by statute, we would always come to the General Assembly to talk about any of those before we actually applied or received those. Page 116 is a companion item, I would say. This is for other grants and donations that we would receive from various kinds of foundation, Lumina, Gates, those kinds of things. And again, provides us with an opportunity to accept those grants and then have the ability to expend those funds. And the final item in this book is on page 123. And that's the legal expense fund transfer that's standard across all the agencies. We'll move on then to book 2. This starts out with the financial aid programs. I would draw your attention to, it's in the book, page 128 is the start of this. There are a set of what we call payment tables that for all of our student financial aid programs that provide information about by institution, how many students were paid in each program, and how much money was dispersed on behalf of those students. So again, just good information if you're interested. Next up is page 179. This is the core transfer for the academic scholarship or the Bright Flight program. I'll make a note here for several of these programs. There are 2 items. One is the core transfer, which transfers the fund into the fund for that program, and then there's a spending authority line as well. That'll be the next item up here. So again, for the Bright Flight program, the governor recommended $27.5 million for this program. In FY23, we paid a little over 8,600 students in this program. Again, this is our main merit-based program. Up next is page 184. Again, this is the spending authority side of that, the second piece. The spending authority is at $29 million. We need some additional spending authority in this program because as returns come in, we need to be able to respend those, and that's why that additional spending authority is necessary.
Hang on a second, Leroy. Senator May.
Good morning. I just missed the last thing you said. How many students for the Bright Flight, and is that on this paper?
It's in the program description, but again, there were 8,623 students is how many we paid in FY23.
Do we know what area they're coming from?
I do not off the top of my head. There's been some work that's been done that way, but we don't typically track that or record that on a regular basis.
Can you, I mean, we do have that information though, don't we?
We can, what we would have would be, we can tell where they live. I don't know that it's more difficult. We don't collect the high school that they come from, and so we might not be able to do that. But
Yeah.
we could use zip codes, that type of thing, to say, this many students came from the St. Louis area, for example, if you
Absolutely.
wanted
Can you
to.
give me that information?
Sure, we can do that.
Thank you.
It may take a little time. Again, that's not something that we have routinely, but yes, we can get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Just as a reminder, anytime, if you're going to do that, get that information to our staff, and then they'll disseminate it out to the whole committee.
Will do.
So that
Yes, sir.
we're all looking at the same thing. Senator Luke Meyer, are you done, Senator May?
I am.
Okay, perfect. Senator Luke Meyer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I think we're ready to move on.
Senator Luke Meyer.
Real
Oh,
quick.
I'm sorry, I'm
No, you're
sorry.
good. You're good. So on the the three different scholarships that are here, I'm familiar with A+, I'm familiar with Bright Flight. Both are merit-based. Access Missouri Financial Assistance Program, is that that's a needs-based program?
That's a need, yeah,
Okay.
it's need-based.
I was just looking at the total numbers, like the entire total for the University of Missouri system is 19.8, and then I was looking at, I think it was CMSU was, it was more than the entire UM system. We're just lagging behind the entire UM system. I just thought that was 17 million for UCM. I'm sorry, 17 million. Do you know what's driving the fact that there's that many needs-based scholarships at that particular campus? That just seems to be really high.
It's actually the number of Access Missouri scholarships has been declining over the last several years, and so it's lower than it has been. We
Okay.
actually peaked back in 2015.
And I don't have a qualm with it. It just struck me that it's 2 million off that one campus off of the entire University of Missouri system. That just seems to be kind of an aberration. I just didn't know if you know it was causing a lot of needs-based students to attend that campus versus.
That I do not know.
Okay.
That I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think we were on 193. I believe that's where we were ready to go, which is the transfer item for the Access Missouri Financial Assistance Program. Again, as we indicated, that's our major need-based program in the state. The recommendation transfers for $75.4 million. In this program, we paid 35,717 students last year. The awards range from the maximum awards, which is where we are right now, is $1,300 for individual and these are annual, that are attending a community college, and $2,850 for our four-year and our independent institutions and state tech. Page 198 is next. Again, this is the spending authority line for that, 83.9 million. One thing to keep in mind here, one reason why this spending authority is substantially higher is there's a statutory transfer that occurs from gaming of $5 million, and so we have to have enough spending authority room to be able to spend those funds.
Yep. Senator Arthur.
So you said that the Access Missouri funding peaked in 2015. Is that right?
The number of students that we serve did,
Okay.
yes.
Do you know what accounts for the decline?
I can't say definitively. I think from our perspective, that was the point at which we had really come out of the Great Recession, and so we saw more people going back to work, incomes rising, and so I believe a lot of it had to do with the changes in terms of economics. Students that had been eligible earlier in the process, their families now were in a different economic situation and were no longer eligible.
Can you remind me, is it that any student who qualifies or is eligible receives the full amount? How does that work?
Well, again, it's the way Access works is that if you have to complete the FAFSA, and if your EFC is below the cutoff right now, that's $12,000, then you would be eligible for an award. We don't know, again, the award amount fluctuates based on how much money is appropriated and how many eligible students we have. Luckily, for the last couple of years, we've been able to fund at the maximum levels for the last 2 years. So the program is essentially fully funded.
And how does the maximum amount compare to some of the tuition seen across the state?
There's a chart in the program
Okay.
description here that shows the percent on average. It's not by institution, and so it varies. Again, I can go back and take a look at that if you'd like, but it is in the book here and shows it.
Did I miss
over the
it? Did
years.
we already go through?
It would be. See if I can find
Oh,
it.
I see. Okay, 192.
It's on page 205.
Oh, 205. What am I looking at there then? Okay. That is helpful. That's what I needed to know. All right, thank you.
You bet.
Senator Arthur, are you done?
Please, can I cede my time to Senator May, please?
No, there is no time limit here, but we try to keep this kind of brief. So, Senator May, got a question?
Of course. Do we track those students? And where are they coming from around the state?
Right. Again, the FAFSA provides an address, so is what we would be able to use to say what region of the state or where they have come from.
Can I get that information?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we were on 198, that's no, 198 is the next item up, and that's the core, again, that's what we talked about, 83.9 million. So the next one up is page 207. We're moving now into the A-plus schools program. Again, this is the scholarship component of that program. Governor recommended $60.3 million for that program. The average award in this program is $3,750. We paid 13,939 students through that program, and there are 752 high schools in the state that are designated as A-plus schools. That's both public and private high schools. Up next is page 212, again, which is the spending authority line for the A-plus schools program, $61.9 million for that. Next is page 221. This is the Fast Track Workforce Incentive Grant Program. As the Commissioner indicated, this is our adult, non-traditional program focused. And again, this is a program that's undertaken some changes over the last several years, and from our perspective, I think we're just now beginning to see it grow into its real potential. Last year, we paid 658 students. We've already paid more than that this year, and so we really think we're on a good growth trajectory for this program. The average award was just slightly less than $3,700 in this program. Again, this is a last dollar program. Other aid comes first, and then this fills the gap that's left over in terms of tuition and fees. If other aid covers the entire tuition and fee amount, then the student's eligible for up to $500 to cover other higher education costs, books, equipment, that type of thing. Page 226 is the spending authority line for that. Again, $6 million is the spending authority. 235 is our next page. This is the dual credit, dual enrollment scholarship program. Governor recommended $7 million. Again, this is another program I think is in a growth mode. It's relatively new. We paid just less than 600 students through this program last year, and the average award was about $752. So again, that lays out to about 2 courses that we're paying for each of those students on average. Page 240 is the spending authority line for that as well. That's $7 million was the recommendation there. Now we'll move into the smaller, more specialized programs. The first one of those is on page 249. This is the Advanced Placement Incentive Grant. This provides students with a one-time $500 grant if they are eligible for Access Missouri or A+, and they've received a grade of 3 or higher on 2 advanced placement tests in either math or science. The spending authority here is $100,000. Again, the money for this is provided through through MOHELA. We paid 7 students in this program last year. Page 258 is the next program. This is the Public Service Officer Survivor Grant Program. This provides tuition and fees awards for students whose parents or who had a parent that was either killed or severely injured in a workplace accident that's compensable through workforce compensation. I'm sorry, that's killed in the line of duty. I'm sorry. So this is for firemen, policemen, air ambulance, a whole range of folks, and it's laid out in here. $160,500. We paid 13 individuals through this last year. The average award was $7,521. Page 267 is a Wartime Veterans Survivor Grant Program. The governor recommended $325,000 for this. This program is for combat veterans that meet certain criteria. This covers their tuition and fees capped at the University of Missouri rate. Plus, it also offers a $2,000 room and board allowance and a $500 book allowance. And it's capped at 25 students. Page 276 is the next item. And this is a new decision item, and this is, you should have received a handout. There was a missing page. This is where the missing page fits in. Again, this is a new decision item for the Wartime Veterans Grant Program. This came up late, again, although we didn't have this information in time for our recommendation back in October. We talked to the governor's office. They added $170,000. This is really gives us some additional funding to allow us to continue to fully fund any students we have. Really reflects changes in terms of tuition and fee costs, those types of things. 281 is the next item that's up. This is the Missouri Returning Heroes Act. We had requested just over $1 million for this program. The governor did not recommend it. Again, this is relates to the program by a statute that requires our public institutions to reduce undergraduate tuition for eligible veterans to $50 a credit hour, 30% of the advertised tuition for graduate programs. And so each year we go out to them, ask how much they've waived, and the statute does allow for us to bring this forward. Unfortunately, the governor did not recommend
Right,
this.
so walk me through how that works. So we've got a statute that says that these rates will be discounted for these students, but we're not going to fund it. So do the universities that discount these rates because they're following statute just have to eat the cost on that?
Correct. That's what's occurred in the past. It's never been, we've never received an appropriation to fund this.
And $1,043,401 funds it completely?
Right, that's
was
last
last
year's,
year's?
that's last year's amount that was waived. That's the way the statute
Yeah,
describes it.
Okay. We'll probably be working on that.
All right.
Thanks.
There was about $2,100 on average that was waived for those students, and there were 493 veterans that participated in that. And then the next one up is the Kids Chance Scholarship Program. Again, this is the one I mistakenly described before, where it's about someone whose parent was injured or killed in a workplace accident. Again, $15,000. We administer this program in partnership with a private philanthropic group, Kids Chance of Missouri. And so this funds 2 students is what we're able to, what we're able to spend is the interest off of a corpus that was established a number of years ago. Page 296, this is the last of our student financial aid programs, the Minority and Underrepresented Environmental Literacy Program, designed to provide scholarships to encourage students either at the bachelor or master's degree level to enter a field related to the environment, $36,964. We move on now to the student loan program item. That's on page 305. Again, this is spending authority, although our operation as a loan guarantee agency for the federal government, we closed in October of 2022. There is still some money remaining in that fund, and so we can continue to spend it for allowed purposes. And so things like student financial aid, we can spend it for default prevention, those kinds of things, financial literacy. So this is spending authority out of that fund. The next item is a new decision item, 314. As a part of that closeout, there are multiple funds. There's a federal fund and an operating fund. There's money remaining in the federal fund that is owed to us. This allows us, the spending authority allows us to transfer that fund out of that federal fund and into the operating fund where we can actually spend it. So it really is the last piece of kind of closing out that particular program. Page 320, we move now into the workforce development area. This is the Workforce Development Administration. The governor recommended $21.5 million. Again, this is federal funding, primarily flows through to the department to administer the WIOA Act, Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, the Wagner-Pizer Act, Trade Readjustment Act, and Veterans Employment. And so this really is the money that we use to operate from an administrative perspective, the workforce development system. Page 322 is the next item. This is the workforce autism. This relates to the Taylor Institute down in Cape Girardeau in the southeast part of the state. $250,000 was recommended by the governor. The next item up is a new decision item on page 338. We had requested $1.8 million to move from our current way that we allocate costs to our federal programs to go to a standard indirect cost rate. The governor did not recommend this item. this would really be an important item for us. Again, this is, the way we do it now is extremely burdensome and takes a lot of staff time. If we could go to a direct rate, it would be much simpler, both for our staff, but also for the folks that work in the job centers as well. Up next is page 344. This is our data team, I guess I would say, the Missouri Economic Research and Information Center. Governor recommended $4.5 million for this. Again, most of the unemployment data that you hear about Missouri, emerging jobs, that all comes out of this particular shop. A lot of the work, you can see it's a mix of both federal and state funding. The federal funding really relates to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that we do the work for them under federal statute. And so all of that data comes out of this. In addition, the P20W Center that you all approved last year is also housed in this particular area, and that funding is there as well. Page 356 is the next up. This is pass-through money, part of administering both WIOA and the Wagner-Pizer program. Directs us to provide money directly to local workforce boards that are involved in job centers that the commissioner mentioned. So most of this money goes straight through to them based on a federal formula that would occur. Again, $52.5 million. You'll note that there is a core reduction here. We've been carrying quite a bit of excess spending authority in this program, and so we'd like to more right-size the amount of the appropriation. So it's about almost a $25.5 million core reduction. It still gives us enough room. We need some room on top of that if there's a disaster that comes in or something happens, so that we can scale up using federal funds again. But this more right sizes what we've got. Up next is page 358. If I could get there. This is a Launch KC program. Again, provides resources to support business startups in the Kansas City area. The governor recommended $350,000 for that. Page 360 is next. This is a workforce for a social work program at Missouri Western State University. It's a partnership, but it provides options for folks wanting to go into social work, that opportunity there at the Missouri Western State University. $300,000 was recommended. Page 362 is next. This was a one-time item. There was, I'm sorry, this was a one-time item last year, and again, this just removes it from the budget. Page 364 is computer programming apprenticeships. Again, you remember last year this program was expanded. It had been just $500,000, and there was just one contractor. Last year it went through, and it raised it to $1 million, but said there should be two. So this continues that $1 million funding to provide cost-free computer training to eligible citizens. Page 366 is Apprenticeship in Missouri. This is the existing core item for $3 million to fund the apprenticeship operation that the commissioner described. The next item up, though, on page 391, I believe, is a new decision item that would move this from the federal funds that we've been using that are basically grant-based, and so it's been an unstable fund source, I would say. And so most states do share some federal funds as well as state funds in these kinds of operations. This would allow us to have $3 million in GR funds that provides us a more stable funding source, a more reliable funding source, so we can continue to grow apprenticeships.
Are the federal funds completely gone?
They're not completely gone, but again, it's been we've been seeing a decline in that area, and again, it's mostly grant-based. So you may get funding for a year or two as a part of that, but then it ends based on that grant.
Right.
And so
Have we applied for the next year's grant? I mean, do we know?
I would have to check and see. I think so. Yeah, we've continued to apply for those grants, but we need this additional funds in order to continue to keep growing this program.
But the federal funds are somewhere, right?
They are, yes.
Okay. All right. We're not just completely turning it over to general revenue.
Right. No.
Okay. All right.
Up next is page 397, Connecting Missourians to Work. This was $1 million it was in. It's really targeting short-term, non-degree types of work. Again, the governor did not recommend funding for this. And the last item in this book is on page 402, Mission St. Louis. This was, we did not request this. The governor added $1 million in this area for capital improvements for education, job development, training, and community service for individuals. Again, I think it was in last year's budget, but it was one time, and so we needed to continue it forward here. That concludes book 2. We move on to book 3 now. And we'll start on page 409. Again, this was, if you remember, there was a $1 million appropriation for a nursing simulation lab, one-time funds, and so this zeroes that out of the budget. Page 414 is the Precision Health and Agricultural Sciences. This is a partnership between Missouri Southern State University, the Southern Center for Advanced Professional Studies, Missouri Biotechnology Association, and Missouri Western. The idea here is to provide exposure to students and classroom teachers to kind of the workforce of tomorrow. Again, the governor recommended $2.3 million. Page 421 is the Project Lead the Way program at Missouri University of Science and Technology. Again, you all know what that's really designed to encourage students to go into STEM fields, expose them to the opportunities that are there. $250,000 is the recommendation. Page 430. Oh,
Senator Black.
Thank you. While we were going through the last one, Project Lead the Way, which for old people is the replacement of, if you're old enough, industrial arts and growth and expansion. Have you folks had any schools in the state start talking about maybe retraining or bringing back training program for industrial tech type teachers, even though I realize they probably won't be making chests and lamps like I remember, but has that been a discussion, or are we just still at the point where no middle school kid's ever going to have shop teacher again?
I don't have an answer for that. I don't know. I mean, we've not heard anything about
Okay,
that happening.
no schools have contacted the department
I don't
thinking
believe so.
about bringing back that type of education.
The
The two people in the back listening to this?
I'm sorry?
I want to make sure 2 people in the back are also listening to this.
Yeah, we could, I'm not aware of any direct conversations with us. I do know the community colleges have been doing a lot of great partnerships in their regions, identifying these kinds of things. And so I think that's part of the area of growth.
Yeah, because of Missouri's certification for
For
teachers to be in there, even though we might have somebody good come from a community college that might be really good, they're not allowed to go into a school, private school or public school in our state and provide that service that obviously I think needs to be provided again. Nobody's contacted you. Boy, I hope that changes soon. Thank you.
All right. Next item up is on page 430, I believe. This is the item for community college appropriations. I'll pause just a minute. Again, there was always some questions about enrollment, and so I wanted to provide a little bit of information for the fall enrollment. We've really seen what I hope is we've reached the bottom of the valley in terms of enrollment decline. Last year, both at the community colleges and at 4 years, we saw about a 1% growth in terms of enrollment over the previous year. Now they're still down substantially over a longer period of time, somewhere around 10 to 12% from 5 years ago. But hopefully we've kind of reached a bottom in terms of that enrollment decline. We'll have to, 1 year doesn't make a trend yet, but hopefully we've kind of reached that point. So anyway, now we'll move on then. Page 430 is the core item for the community college appropriation, $173.2 million. The next item is the new decision item on page 443. This is the request for a core increase for the community colleges. Coordinating approved, and the department brought forward a recommendation for a 5% increase. That would be about a little over $8.6 million would have been that amount. The governor, as you know, recommended a 3% increase for those institutions. That's approximately $5.2 million. Page 450 is the next item. This is the tax refund offset. Again, this is authority for them to intercept individuals that owe them money, intercept their income tax refund in order to pay those debts. Again, it's spending authority, basically, $3 million. Page 455 is the next up. We're moved now into State Technical College of Missouri. This is their core item of almost $9.1 million. The next item is the new decision item, their core increase request. Again, 5% was our recommendation, $452,825. The governor recommended the 3%, $271,695. Page 472 is up next. This starts us through, I don't know how you want to proceed with this. Do you want to go through each of these institutions?
In fact, I do not, unless members of the committee have specific questions about specific institutions. Good.
Then the only ones there are a couple that I'll draw your attention to as we go through. 492 is a new decision item for Southeast Missouri State University. We just talked about debt offset. This raises the amount of their debt offset so that they can fully utilize that authority. We had recommended $25,000. The governor recommended $50,000. The next item is another new decision item, very similar. This one is for Missouri State University. They had requested a $100,000 increase in their debt offset to allow them again to fully utilize it. The governor recommended $200,000. The next one, a new decision item, is the Lincoln Land Grant match. We had recommended $2.2 million, and the governor, that was his recommendation as well. Again, this the land grant match is always a moving target for the institution, and things change over time. So while at the time last year you all made the appropriation, that was considered to be fully funded, things changed after that, and so they've come and asked, we need this additional $2.2 million in order to fully draw down the federal funds that are available.
Senator Black.
Leroy, no. Sir, what does that make that total on that match? You know, I've been trying to pay
It's,
attention to that for the last 8 years, and I want to make sure that we're doing what we should do on the match, but I don't want this to start turning into a cash cow either.
No, I understand. It's the current appropriation is
What page are you on?
10.4 million, and so this would be on top of that. So by my rough math, that would be about 12.6 million is what the total would be if this were approved.
Okay, from the Fed side, have you had paperwork come in front of you? The Fed increased the amount coming to Lincoln that much to cause this? You've seen that?
Yes, they provided
You've
us with
saw
that
that.
documentation.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and then the next item that I'll draw your attention to is, and it's a core item, it's on page 589, but it's a specific to Harris Stowe State University, their urban policing program. Again, the governor recommended continuing the $500,000 appropriation for that particular purpose, for that program. With that, we can move on then down to page 647. This is the core increase for the four-year colleges and universities. As before, we had recommended a 5% increase, $45.1 million. The governor recommended a little over $27 million. We move now into the University of Missouri related programs. The first one of those is on page 664. The governor recommended $2.4 million. This is the St. Louis International Collaboration. That's a program where they work with other countries, Israel, Ireland, and a number of others to try and attract business location into the St. Louis area. Page 680, again, as we go through these University of Missouri related programs, the Missouri Telehealth Network, continuing the core appropriation there of $1.9 million for that program. Page 694 is the Spinal Cord Injury Fund, continuing the core recommendation there of $1.5 million. Page 702 is the Missouri Kidney Program, again continuing the core of $1.7 million for that. Page 714, we have several items that relate to the Missouri Historical Society, the State Historical Society. This is the core item for the Historical Society, $3.9 million. Again, yeah, I think you all know what the Historical Society does. So, then we move into some new decision items for them. The first one is on page 724. This was a request from Historical Society.
Senator May.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just got a quick question. On the kidney program, is that for people who are requesting a kidney transplant, or?
It provides funding to assist students. It can be for dialysis. It can be for other purposes. I mean, it just depends on the condition that the person is in, but a range of services for those, particularly those that have financial need.
Okay, very good. I see this map, that's why I was looking. Okay,
I'm
thank
sorry?
you. I'm seeing the map of the allocation.
Right,
of
yeah.
patients. Is that the number of people that we've served in the map?
Right. This information was provided by the university and by this particular group.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, again, on page 724, staffing for the for the State Historical Society, they had requested $137,895. It was not recommended by the governor. They were requesting 2 additional positions. Keep in mind, the individuals that work for the Historical Society are not state employees, and they are not university employees. They're kind of in between, I guess I would say. So this is the only way. They don't get the cost of living, for example, that state employees get. They don't get whatever the raise is that the university gets. The only way they are able to expand their staff or offer raises is going through this process. So page 729 is the next one. Again, this was really for 2 purposes. One was a leave payout based on some changes to their retirement system, and then also a cost of living increase. It would have been a 5% raise for their staff, and then the payout was for about 22. It was $423,000 was the request. The governor did not recommend it. 733 was a request from the State Historical Society for a digital record system. $50,000 was the request. The governor did not recommend that. The governor did recommend a new decision item for the State Historical Society of $510,666. They're on page, which page is it? 737. Yes, but 738 includes a listing of what the appropriation would cover. Again, it's my understanding that the expectation is that these are the specific items that those funds would be expended for. And then the very last item is on page 744. This is the University of Missouri State Seminary Fund. Again, that's managed by the state treasurer. This really, spending authority allows them to move money from that corpus into their budget so that it can be spent for appropriate purposes. And that's all we've got.
Leroy, thanks. Director, thanks. Any other questions from the committee? Doesn't appear. Appreciate you getting through that as quickly
Thank
as
you
you
for your
did.
time.
I'll remind the committee Tuesday next week, unless we're on the floor doing the FRA, which would be my intention, we'll have a hearing with the Department of Public Health. Right? All right. We're adjourned. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.